Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to top and tail the setup of the Green Dragon Inn and to finalize the occupants. Now one thing that I was thinking about, and this harks back to one of the earlier videos where I had I used the metaphor, I think the analogy of having a laboratory, and effectively this in design process, you could almost imagine it like a scientific experiment. Now I suppose hard science isn't really a factor in medieval society. The nearest thing you're going to get to is alchemy. So let's think of that as our scientific basis. And you know, everybody kind of knocks alchemy as being, oh, that's just a lot of nonsense, people just mixing up chemicals and whatever. But according to my research, characters such as Isaac Newton, was one of his interests was alchemy. So I presume that it provided some basic understanding of compounds and chemicals and how they interacted with each other. So it kind of all just been kind of bunkum. It must have had a kind of scientific basis to it, and also been used as a bedrock of knowledge going forward. So I'm going to try to explain, just give you an overview of this green dragon using a kind of an analogy of a scientific experiment, which hopefully will be able to encapsulate each of the steps that we've been going through, and you can see where that all fits in. So let's enter into the laboratory of, we've got our alchemist, Anachronous the alchemist. You're in his you've been invited. He's a friendly old soul. You've been invited into his laboratory. It's your classic. It's got flasks and test tubes and glassware all over the place. There's candles and flickering, and there's lanterns, and it's all filled with kind of vapors and smoke, and it smells of things like sulfur mixed with very sweet smelling, and it's all really quite atmospheric. And he says, I'm going to perform this experiment, sit down and start taking some notes. So you get your I think they had like slate boards with chalk. So you're good at writing and reading, which again was not really noted in the Middle Ages, but you're educated sorts. I'm going to give you an overview of the experiment. So this experiment is called the Green Dragon Inn. And with all good experiments, it starts with an input. You have a catalyst, there's a reaction, then you have an output. So he says, he gets out his cauldron and he says, this represents the Green Dragon, the Green Dragon Inn. And this is where we describe the structure. So cast your mind back to the Green Dragon. It was a large 3-story structure. It was well presented, had nice interior decor, lots of things scavenged from the surrounding village when it was reoccupied. It's probably got some bits of nice mosaic on the floor, just kind of Roman features, maybe a few busts and things hanging around. The main eating drinking hall, that's where most of the entertainment goes on. There's a kitchen, pantry, some stabling. So that's the structure. We have our guest, the star of the show, Fredegar, the landlord. His bossy opinionated wife, Martha, the loyal manservant who has been mistreated previously, Seymour, trusting employee. We have our entertainer, singer, dancer, you've got the audience in her palm, gets out the harp, everybody's crying, it's that good stuff. I've called her Rowena. There's some excellent fare, there's some long lake trout, there's Hawksmoor game, grouse, there's Hawksmoor beer, which has got a reputation far and wide. Everybody's happy. So this represents the where. So all that description. And if you can visualize that in your mind's eye, congratulations, that's you back in 1979, because that's what we had back in the day. We didn't have any of this glitzy, go on the internet and look up a big fantasy inn, or we didn't have any pictures of, it was all based on imagination. So if you can achieve that, you're with the program. Now he says we need some ingredients. So he goes over to his desk, his table, and he picks up a few flasks and vials and comes back over and he says, right, the first ingredient we've got is the player characters. So yeah, so he empties in some blue liquid player characters. The second ingredient that we got is the occupants. So there's another vial goes into the cauldron, and what the occupants represent is the what. So these are what we have in the inn, and then we generate the traits and personality, which we've already done to an extent for Fredegar and Martha, and this is the who. So we do this process for everyone, all the NPCs, and then we generate on my table the this one here, which was my list of 20 what are they doing type questions. And I've just called that motivation. And that is our why. So we've got where, what, who, and why. Okay? Now, he's poured all this into the cauldron. He says, right, next, we need the spark. We need the catalyst. The enabler, secret ingredient, and it's your lucky day because I'm going to tell you what that catalyst later on, but let's just call that ingredient X, and that is our secret ingredient, and this gives the spark. It basically I suppose we could say he pours in a vial of black liquid, and everything goes boom, there's a big flash, and the cauldron starts to bubble and whatever. And because he's a kindly soul, Anachronous, he says, I'm going to give you the secret of this secret ingredient so that you know and you have all this knowledge to yourself. And we go, yes, thank you, Anachronous. You're going to make our day. And we can do our solo role playing from now on with confidence that we've got this secret ingredient. So let's go on with the experiment. It's bubbling away. So we're having a reaction. It's changing color, whatever. We are using this catalyst to create a reaction, and this is where I talk about reaction tables. So when we go to our Dungeon Master's Guide and we look at this table, one table to rule them all, This is the the reaction table, which it's in the combat zone, isn't it? Surprise. There we go. Encounter reactions. As I say, this is the one table to rule them all. We'll be using this extensively. And this is what I call my reaction stage. And now with all good experiments, it's been bubbling away. We have, over time, we get an output. So this is where we interpret the reactions. And this is where the closest thing we come to role-playing. We have to assess what these mean for the characters, what it means for the NPCs, and just what it means for the campaign going forward. So if it goes well, we've got gold. But even if we generate lead, it's still going to be a valuable process, because we can do this on repeat. We can go to any other inn and do this. You wonder why I'm kind of labouring this point so much. I think the inn thing is it's designed as a bit of fun. So it's a kind of light-hearted, good way. It's a little mini game that you can play at the start of any game. You can bring it at any time. You could do it even standalone. I mean, if you wanted to have some combat in this, you could have like bit of barroom brawling going on, all the good stuff that you do in a medieval inn. Okay, right. I'm gonna keep that in mind. The chain reaction and the scientific experiment by our alchemist, because it will come back and we'll use it later on when we do a practical experiment. Now, I did look through my tape yesterday, and I feel a bit sorry for it. Remember we were looking at the encounter tables. Well, it was basically my men table, and I shouldn't do this because I was poking fun. I was guilty of this with Seymour, making assumptions. I think it's called unconscious bias in modern parlance. Where is my? Oh, here we go. Let's go back to the encounter table. And I was having a bit of a laugh about the hag, crone, witch, and saying there's absolutely no way we should have that represented in the inn environment. And I probably forgot one of the first rules of fantasy is that cast your mind, if you've ever read Paul Anderson, Broken Sword, he has, and if you haven't, I'm just going to explain just some of the plot. He has an anti-hero in it who is half troll. He's a half man, half troll, or is it half elf, half troll? Half man, half troll, and he is in search of his nemesis, who is like a half elf. And they're going to have this amazing big confrontation at the end. But in his travels, he comes across a hut, and it's got this beautiful, amazing, it's a very seductive, she's overpowering female. He's completely swept off his feet. She turns out to be a witch. And she's like an ancient old crone and stuff, but she's used her powers to give her a hidden identity. And I think that concept, if we just take that forward, the beautiful sorceress who's being seductive, or say another one I've got is spy agent. What self-respecting spy is going to say, yeah, I'm a spy, yeah, that's me. They're going to keep their identity hidden. So you've got this hidden information. You have to somehow treat your player characters as if they don't have that information. So that comes down to, when we were discussing before about the role-playing aspect, that you have a dungeon master side and a player character side, and it's kind of a blend of the two. This is where you probably go more down on the Dungeon Master side, and you might have to introduce things like some of the ability scores that you might want to use in that situation. So I'm trying to think of what, like say wisdom, whether you have got the intuition to see through these disguises, or intelligence to work out things, messaging that's coming through from your interaction. So these encounters, they're not just two-dimensional. There's another dimension going on. Who's to say that this scribe isn't like a kind of Superman? He takes off his glasses and he's doing his bit of a Clark Kent thing. Takes off his glasses and he's like the toughest fighter on the planet. That's an extreme example, but just we can build that into our role playing going forward if we wish. Okay, I think I've laboured the point enough on that. Okay. Right. We had the original sheets where we had these occupants. We had 3 occupants. I put them onto a bit more of a nicer sheet. This says confidently. Yeah, here we go. So we had an official who was escorting someone, male human on his own. We had an adventurer who turned out to be a druid, again on their own, on the face of it, male, and I'm going to come back to that. And this individual dislikes Tristan. We again have an adventurer, fighter thief, half-elf, again on their own, assumption male, and their motivation is that they want adventurers. Now, I realised regarding the male-female dimension that I had overseen. I wasn't building in the fact that these are adventurers, and one of the rules of this game world is that whenever you meet an adventurer, there's a 25% chance that they are female. So we penalise those initial rolls with just a 10%. So I'm quite happy to go back and recalibrate. So you could either do it in one or two ways. We've already had a 10% chance and say it was 25% chance. So you could do a simplistic thing and say, well, it's an uplift of 15. So there's now a 15% chance if we roll again. Or you could take a more pragmatic view and say, well, actually, there's only a 1 in 4 chance that they're going to be female. Why don't we just say that 10% thing was a mistake? We'll do it from start. I'm inclined to just go for the latter, because I'm trying to push female representation in this feudal world. So I think we need to go down the line of re-rolling. So I'm quite happy to go with that if you are. I think that's a fair way to go. So let's look at our druid and see if it's a lady. It's not. After all that spiel, and there's a 25% chance that our half-elf is a lady. Oh, very close, 29. So after all that, they are male. So I left a little space here just in case. And the beauty of the druid is that only humans can be, so that we don't really, we shouldn't have even had to bother with a demi-human on that. I think we decided it before we'd done that. Okay. Right, so that's cleared out of the way. The other thing was the level. And again, in the original thing I put in, I hadn't really decided on a mechanism for that. And I said it should be up to level 3. I am inclined of, I've got seeding characters. I am inclined that whenever we get meetings with adventurers in the Green Dragon, or starting in, they should really be level 1 characters. So we can use them as potential recruitment or as new parties of adventurers that naturally, organically generate themselves. They start appearing in the inn. So say we don't have an alliance with any of these, they could coalesce as other parties. So when we're out adventuring, and then we return and we have a bit of downtime. Maybe the druid and the fighter thief, they say, hey, we could team up and we can go out and do all this sort of stuff that they're doing. So I think that's a good idea. If we had have these as level 1, and that's our kind of like a seeding area, that we get a kind of fresh batch of recruitments. And because I've got this churn factor in the inn, which again is work in progress, but I did allude to that a couple of videos ago. I'm hoping that renewal refresh, pressing the restart button, will have new characters appearing. We might get paladins, we might get fighters, we might get a whole sort, just based on that random distribution. We might get our half-orc pilgrim coming back with his pet. I never found out what the pet was, but it's probably not that important. Okay, right, I think we can put a bit more flesh on the bones now. So with the identification of this official, again, I had, and this is the advantage of doing it kind of like, remember I'm talking about slow motion, and you just do it at your own pace, and it's nice and slow, and this gives you a chance to start thinking about things. It doesn't have to be, yeah, he's an official, I've got to come up with an answer right now, I've got to basically work out his backstory, come out with something really smart that is going to work. You've got time, you've got as much time in the world as you want, which is very useful for me, because I've lost the sheet that I was going to use to describe. Oh, is it here? Oh, yes. Yeah. This I was thinking about what this official would be like, and I went to 2 sources first. First of all, there was a Dungeon Master's Guide, and there is an entry in City Encounters called City Official. So it's got encounters will be with some minor bureaucrat, such as a tax collector, customs officer, guard or watch lieutenant, a deputy bailiff or assistant magistrate. And I thought, I think the city thing is pushing us down a kind of an official bureaucracy that's tailored to a very civilized. It's a cultured environment. It's not really the frontier, if you see what I mean. It's not the marches. These are the northern marches. They're very rugged. It's got a real kind of frontier. It's got frontier justice. So it has to have the official to match that type of environment. So I thought this isn't really going to cut the mustard on it. A steward, an alderman, a justice, a guard, or watch captain, chamberlain, magistrate. Yeah, I thought well and good for the city. So I kind of scrapped that idea and I came up with my own list based on probably slightly more exciting fantasy tropes. So we have our official breakdown, and we have a D6 that we do. And the first one's called the Magistrate. Now, he is an investigator, and he investigates important crimes on behalf of the king, or the king's bureaucracy, or it could be Lord Seward. So I've got a 1 to 5 on a D10 that he would be the king. So that's an option. We've got the tax collector. So that is going to be a royal appointee. Popular guy, he's going to come along. I say that with sarcasm. He will come along. He probably needs some form of protection himself. So when it says that he's escorting someone, they're probably escorting him. He's come to claim the king's taxes, the revenue that Seward and the villagers owe to the king, probably to maintain that patrol that keeps running up and down between. Because when you think of it, with the patrol, that's one. With the patrol, that's quite a bit of territory for it to be going up and down. And the king isn't a charity. He's expecting his highway to be almost like maintained. So he's hoping that he'll get a revenue stream to maintain the patrol, and also maybe some basic upkeep of this military road, because it's like an old Roman road because it was in imperial days, but it is starting to fray at the edges a bit. It's difficult to get the kind of right kind of stone in the paving. And also the labour, the skilled labour that used to be able to do this type of thing. We don't have these legionaries that used to be part of the imperial forces. The imperial days are over. So we need some form of revenue injection. So the king's got a plan on that score. So he's appointed tax collector to come and get Seaward to pay up. The other one is to have a justice or a judge who is like a circuit judge, and he comes round and he tries cases. So again, he's probably a royal appointee. He's come from the centre. He's come to help Seaward with the administration of justice. So if there's any high-profile cases, say there's an important person that they've got to deal with, maybe one of the brigands they've caught, they need to try him. It's probably going to be a bit of an open and shut case on that, but you still need the legal system. So that's why you have a circuit judge. So there could be someone languishing, some brigand languishing in jail, waiting for this circuit judge to administer justice. And the other one's the village elder, who could be like a council member. So Seaward's got his own, it's not a democracy, but he does appoint individuals that he can see within the village who have influence, and he'll put them into what he calls his council, which is a bit of a talking shop. It hasn't got any power at all, but he can use it as a kind of front that he's being a good ruler. And that was important in medieval times. You wanted to have an appearance of being a fair and just ruler. And then, why bother rattle the cages of the peasants? It's a bad enough life anyhow. And in fact, one thing I'm going to do is just talk about how bad medieval peasants' lives were, in comparison to what we have these days. But let's keep the peasant sweet a wee bit. Now this one, I thought this would be quite an interesting dimension. We would have what was called the agent. Now, they are lawful good. They're church appointees. So remember our pantheon, and we've got probably a bit more, not fanatic, but they are really on point when it comes to religion, and it's Alaron's religion. It's not a cult, it's an actual church. And they have their paladins, which are the ultimate, if comparable to the protectors for Bane. But they also have these people called agents. So they have the paladins who go out and fight, and the agents who almost, you remember I used to get all these things about, it was probably early Renaissance time in England, where they had all the witches. You had some of that in America too, with the Salem thing, and there was a kind of peak of witchcraft, and everybody was investigating. He's a bit like that. He's a witch finder general, for want of a better term, which they call the agent, and he investigates heresy and witches and all that sort of stuff. So that's pretty exciting. And again, just as a general, but this all obeys this, or follows this frontier kind of bit more shoot from the hip type environment. So you're going to have some pretty tough. It's not going to be your pen pusher official. These are tough guys or ladies. They're going to do this. And the last one's the captain. So this is the captain of the watch. So he falls under this official banner too. And the captain is a hardened, he's one of Seaward's toughened fighters. He might be one of the host, or maybe he's recruited one of the sergeants in the patrol, and said, I will appoint you to captain if you lead some of my host. Okay, so we've got a choice there. So let's. After all that effort, and we can recycle this, if we get an official next time, we can always have this as a thing. So it's not a wasted effort. So let's see what we get with this official. we get a magistrate. So it is investigation of important crimes. So they are usually things like I have a sheet of paper that said, yeah, in medieval times, in England, sometimes they had what was known as a crowner, and he was a magistrate appointed to investigate important crimes, particularly things like suspicious deaths, and then actually administer justice. So he's a bit, he's a bit like a kind of Judge Dredd character. He embodies, he is enforcement and justice all embodied into one. So this guy could be really quite an interesting. Yeah, I'm beginning to quite like this character already. Okay, and he's going to be royal on a 1 to 5, or he's going to be Seaward's man on a 6 to 10. So he is a royal official. He is the investigator. So we've decided on that. That's there. So he is the magistrate. Don't call me official. I am the magistrate, and he is investigating. And oh, this is interesting. Investigating crimes. Now he's escorting someone. So would he probably, if he say he had arrested someone, say a fugitive or a heretic, and they're not just going to be like your lower class type. We're talking about people of status. So within this society, he's only going to be bothered about, like, say, heretics and murderers who are of a higher social class. So that, say, the noble class or the yeoman class, or just not the serfs. So maybe he's got someone. He won't have them at the inn, but he might have them being held at Seaward's Keep, which is one of the buildings in the town. So okay, so we've done that. The other thing in my process was, well, actually, let's wait and let's do a bit more. So we've decided that thing for the official. What should I do next? Into my plan. Let's get the rules back. I'll just remind you of this process. Yeah, this is, I think, where I can introduce this. Remember, we had the chain reaction going on, and our concoction, our potion, bubbling away. This is. I'm going to show you what makes this. What makes this bubble? What makes this spark? This is what I call my. So yeah, so we've got the in generation. We've done all this stuff. We've got the entertainment, blah 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 blah. We've done the occupants. We've got the 3. We've made a note, and we've got the crowd. We've got everything in place. Now, also we've got the motivation done. Now we do what I call is my interaction mechanic. So this is the catalyst. This is the method. So when you think about it, when you're doing a solo role-playing game, you can't really act out. So you've got your characters in the inn. You've got all these NPCs that you want to interact with, but you've got no real kind of mechanism. You can't talk to yourself. You can't have oh, my Tristan goes up to the magistrate and says, "Are you having a nice time? Have you got any information for me that I could use, or do you want to recruit me to do something?" You can't really do that. So what I thought was, you need some sort of mechanism to does the heavy lifting for the role playing. And I thought, why don't I try out this thing? So this is what we can use every time we have the need for an interaction between the characters and an NPC. And we resolve that when it comes to the actual reaction stage of the thing with the reaction tests. So it might be better if I just explain what I'm talking about. For each NPC, you roll a 1d10 to determine the likelihood of having an interaction with the player characters. So this on a scale of 1 to 10 says, 1, I'm not interested, I want to avoid, no contact desired, or 10, I want to approach automatically, they approach automatically, and they actively seek contact. Anything else is in between. And this generates a base chance. So this establishes a base chance and will determine whether the NPC wants to actively engage with the party, avoid them, or something in between. The characters can determine their manner and behavior in the social setting to modify how the base chance is derived. So you've got independent, as the player characters, we can say, well, we want to change our behavior in this social situation. We either want to be more noticeable or less noticeable. So if they are keeping a low profile and minding their own business, reduce the 1d10 by 1. If they are actively seeking contact and acting as adventurers, increase the score by 1. And if they're just sitting around and they're not really too bothered about anything, you just do the straight roll. Now this is the interest. This will generate a bit more friction in this. We call this the wargaming term, or in warfare, where you get some other variables in which can kind of throw things off kilter. We determine the NPC's personality and assign a general tendency. So that's what I'm going to do now, because we use our discretion how to modify the interaction chance and subsequent reaction. We give a plus or minus. This is actually in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'll show you that when we come to it. They give modifiers based on whether the personality or the trait will be deemed positive or negative. So we have these modifiers into the base chance, which generates whether we need to do a reaction test. And also when we come to doing the reaction test, as advised by the Dungeon Master's Guide, they have an influence on that too. Also, there's an override. You can apply any additional modifiers to the interaction chance or reaction result based on pertinent circumstances and external factors. So a pertinent circumstance would be, in this druid's case, would be their dislike for Tristan. So that's going to make them minded to be less open and less, it's almost like having a racial antipathy, and we'd apply a penalty in that situation. Okay, so that's the secret formula you've seen. And again, it includes all occupants, and it includes the landlord, landlady, and staff. So we've only done the traits for the landlord and landlady. So it might be quite interesting to get some further colour and character for those people. So let's go ahead and do that. Just make sure that I've got on track. Not too much time. Okay. So we've got our official, the magistrate. And should we at this stage, should we give them a name? Because that was another thing I've got a list of names. And I'm thinking, what does he sound like? Hallis. He's called Hallis. The druid is called, that's a female name, Malor. Tree something. Or what about meadow? I was going to do if he'd been a female, I would have gone with meadow flower, but I don't think that sounds very, very masculine. I'll come back to that. He's Malor, and he could be. Oh, I like Baldur. That sounds. Well, yeah, go on. I did it first. Baldur. So already we've got a wee bit of personalisation, which is useful. We've got Fredegar, and we've got Martha, and we've got Seymour. So let's put them down as well. We've got Fredegar, and He's our innkeeper. And we've got Martha, and she's our bossy innkeeperess. And we've got Seymour, who's our manservant. And he was, from memory, Seymour was trusting, so that's the trait. And we've got personality to do. And for these people, because we've already locked in the trait a wee bit, I'm going to be a bit more circumspect when we come to interpret. So if we get, like, he's a psychopath, that's not going to work for Fredegar, is it? And what else do we had for him? He was perceptive. Now, we thought that was a great thing for an innkeeper, and she was she was opinionated. Not only opinionated, she was contrary. So she's always changing her mind. So she bosses Seymour and says, "Go over there and serve that table." "Oh, I told you to go and serve that table. Didn't I tell you to serve?" It's all there's no. That's the worst type of boss. Is one that you just don't know where they're coming from. Okay. So we can do the same type of thing for these. So Halas, the investigator of crimes, we go to here, and what we have is our traits table. So we'll give him a trait first. So what's the trait? So we'll have T, and we'll have personality, and we'll have a trait of, and it's a D12 and a D6. So it's a 6. He's careless. So maybe he's forgotten where he's left his prisoner. Maybe that's a bit extreme. But that's not a very good trait, is it, really, for an investigators of crime. Maybe he's just not very good at it. We'll come to. And on the personality, that's a D8 and a D8. So we'll do a D8 first to see whether he is average, extroverted, or introverted. So he is, he's extroverted. So that, I think the general thing, this personality and having a general thing is important, because usually you just jot down like rude and aloof and whatever. But I think it's quite important to have the overall, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. I think that's important. Because, you get these extroverts like comics and stuff that are actually really quite, they appear really extroverted, like Jim Carrey and stuff like that. But actually they maybe got some internal demons, which doesn't really come out. Right. I'm not a psychologist, so I shouldn't be going on about that. And it's a D8. Well, it's a D8. So let's see what it is in detail. 3. Friendly. Okay. So he sounds like he's a pretty easygoing investigator. He's just in for a nice drink. So it's dependent on what his interaction score is, but already I would say that's a plus. That's going to be plus 1 to 10, 1 to 8. And careless, maybe a plus 1 to 8, because he doesn't really mind if he bumps into people. He doesn't really care. I don't quite know how to do that one, but let's say it's a plus 1 to 8. Okay. Now let's do Malor, our druid, who doesn't like Tristan at all. But we don't know why. Maybe they are locals, and we could also, if we were minded, work out where he was, whether he was a local or he was from a bit further afield. We only really do the location thing if I had that category foreigner, which isn't meant as a kind of, I know when you say foreigner it sounds a wee bit, in these days it sounds a bit harsh, but actually in back in the Middle Ages, you know, everybody was a foreigner, and that's what you called them. So I'm just using the parlance of the time. So let's have a look at Mallow's tendencies. His tendencies are going to be, oh, his traits, sorry. They are 5. Oh, he's helpful and kindly. All right, okay, so he is your nice druid. He loves nature. He's friendly, he's kind. Now, he is almost like the stereotype. He's like a kind of hippie. You know, you shouldn't really kind of do all that kind of, you know, actually read too much into these things and just think of them in 21st or 20th century terms, but you can't really help it. He is average, and he has got 4. He's aloof. So, okay, so that's going to work out a -1 to 8. And friendly and kind is a plus, so that balances that. You see how that mechanic's working, and also that will be the same in reactions. So we'll use that for the interaction base and for the reaction score. And the last one that we're going to do is Baldur, who is our fighter thief, and he wants adventurers. So there's a good chance, I was thinking about that, there's a good chance, say 80%, that he wants some help to go and explore this ruined palace that he's been hearing about. He's been hearing all these whispers, and you can actually see it in the distance, the smoking volcano. So he wants to go and have a look at that. So if we do T and P, we've got his traits first. 6. So that's 18. Oh, foul and barbaric. Wow. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Foul. He's not only barbaric, he's foul and barbaric. That is definitely not a good trait. So I would say that's a -1 to 8. He doesn't want any friends. Okay, that's going to shut me up a bit. His personality is going to be a D8. He is an average, and he is a 1, modest. Okay, so again with modest, I would say that's a -. Modest. He's average and modest. And you see how these dice rolls can sometimes be a bit difficult to interpret. You know, maybe the careless thing isn't really a trait that you'd expect with investigators of crimes, or a fighter thief being foul and barbaric. Maybe it just depends on his upbringing. Half elf, he must have got maybe a bit of a rough side on his human side. We're going to have let's have some personality for Fredegar, but bearing in mind that we want to be mindful to his overall. So he's an average, and he is a 3, friendly, perfect. He is an average, and he's friendly. There where the dice work, and they just confirm your assumptions. But it is really serendipity how they're going to turn out. And Martha, let's see if there's any redeeming features with Martha. There's bound to be, because you know, they must be in love with each other, or maybe it's a bit, you know, the Les Miserables thing where in the film they've got Sacha Baron Cohen as the innkeeper, and he's got Helena Bonham Carter, which is amazing to having Helena Bonham Carter as the inn lady. And they're having this dance. I do remember this from the film, because I came out afterwards and I said, did you notice that? And it's like they're set up in the musical, and you know, as being really sparring against each other and whatever. But Helena Bonham Carter, when they're doing this dance, and she's kind of lamponing, saying, "Oh, master of the house," and all that sort of stuff, and kind of slagging him off for being a bit of a scoundrel, she gives them this little wink that, or I'm sure she almost like Mouse, I love you type thing. And it's maybe that's what's going on between those two. You know, on the face of it, they're all at each other like cats and dogs. But 8, introverted. Introverted. Okay. Maybe she doesn't like crowds. So this is one where we might do the override. Aloof. Well, okay, that works. That does work because she's haughty, she's opinionated, she's not really a very pleasant character, whereas he is friendly, he understands everything. He is the, he tones down his wife. He has a control on her, the excesses. And our good old Seymour, let's see what he is. Come on, Seymour, we're rooting for you here. He's a 7, so he's extroverted too. Okay. And he is 5. Antagonistic. Oh, Seymour. Antagonistic. Not a good trait for Barstaff. So maybe the way to interpret that is that he will not suffer any nonsense. So if we've got a guest, he's causing hassle, he's maybe sort of being rather lewd to one of the barmaids, our man Seymour steps in, says, I'll show you the door. It's not curfew, but it's curfew for you. Okay. Right, I'm just seeing the time actually, and I cannot believe that I've been going. Right, what I plan to do is, right, I think I've given you a heads up of this what I call the secret ingredient. What we're going to do is actually run the mechanic with these scores and work out what the what base chance is. So say we roll, in fact we'll do that now. So we've got a score to have in our heads. So for, oh yeah, let's make a decision first for our characters. Are they wanting to keep a low profile, or do they want to just be real adventurers and start doing all the carousing stuff? I think we'll just be neutral in this case, so there's no modifier for the characters. But again, remember they can use their discretion. So for our official Hallis, he is a 9, so he wants a good chance. He's friendly, he's a 9. So we'll put 9 here as the base thing, and we'll modify it. So that's a 75% base, and we can modify it with this stuff when we come to doing the reaction score. Our adventurer, druid Malor, let's see what he's like. He's okay, he's a kind of 5, that's a kind of average. There's maybe a 25% chance. And our foul and barbaric fighter thief. I can't believe I got that. All right, 8. Oh yeah, he actually does want, so maybe he wants a fight. Maybe that's the way we. And just on the interaction or whatever, I'm deeming that this is for the starting characters and having you starting in. I'm not expecting it to be a place of danger, so I'm not expecting any of these interactions to escalate into physical violence and the characters may be dying in the situation, because that's not really the purpose. The idea is to have a bit of fun, some interaction, try out the mechanics, and basically just generate something, because already we've got a few more NPCs that are interesting. We've got maybe a dynamic, certainly a bit more of a dynamic going on with Fredegar and Martha. Let's see how this catalyst seeds the reaction, and we get this. We're either going to get a big bang, an explosion, or it's just going to go fut, and we're going to get lead rather than. But let's pray with these guys for gold. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. Leave it on a high. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.